We're good.
Okay, we're all set.
Yep.
Oh,
So do we need to do the sign-in sheet?
150. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. It's a little bit funny, I gotta say, in terms of just going in on Zoom and just assuming that there's people out there. But I know Lauren's out there and we have
There's
4
other people there.
in the room. So that's good. Rebecca and I are doing a session on cultivating a culture of access, which is something that it's actually a presentation we did at EDUCAUSE earlier in the year. And we've gone and modified it to really give a background in terms of how we've worked at what we call digital accessibility here on our campus. Throughout SUNY, most people call it electronic IT accessibility. But for us, we've tried to build everything around the digital campus. So it just fits in with digital accessibility would fit in with our overall IT model. So just to give you some background, I'm Sean Moriarty. I'm the Chief Technology Officer here on campus, as well as the Electronic IT Officer. And I also serve on a couple of SUNY EIT committees, including being co-chair of one of the EIT advisory committees. Rebecca?
Hello, everyone. I'm a white female with chin-length blonde hair and glasses, and I use the pronouns she, her, hers. I've been at Oswego for about 11 years, and I'm currently the Associate Dean of Graduate Studies and a professor in art and design. And I've been working on accessibility as part of my research program and things that I teach for a really long time. And so this is an area that I spend a lot of time on. And I've served on the SUNY EIT kind of accessibility committee, writing the initial plans and reports, and also served on the SUNY Empowering Students with Disabilities Task Force, which also resulted in a report that went to the SUNY Provost. So our agenda for today's session includes kind of just sharing our kind of goal and vision for what a culture of access might look like. We want to expand the coalition, and then also, trying to get this out of the way so we can see. There we go. And then really talk about some tactics that we can use to all cultivate a culture of access. And these are all really actionable things, whether or not you have the technical savvy.
And I should give a description myself, because actually when I look at the screen, I see I'm hardly even on.
Yeah.
So so I'm mid-60s, graying hair, but I have a suit on today, so I'm really no glasses. So first of all, we want to talk about and get an understanding of where people are. And we ask, how confident are you in your ability to explain digital accessibility to any of your colleagues? And we have a poll everywhere set up, and you can text the answer if you want to Sean M217, and the number is on the screen, 37607, or you can go to polleverywhere.com/Sean M.
Or use the QR code on the screen.
17, or use a QR code to go and get it on the screen. So
This is where you
if
interact.
you got a phone, feel free. If you got a computer, you can go in and do that. So we'll just take a moment here.
Sean, I don't think it's
not working.
no. It's working for me now. Oh, you just skipped the last one. All right, well, we're having some technical difficulties, Sean. It went to the second question.
Oh, they're gonna move that. How about now?
All right, try again. It says it's not going, Sean.
Working that way.
Oh, there it is. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, now it's finally working, so we'll give everyone a chance to fill that out.
Okay. I think we can go to the next.
You
You
get that?
see it?
No, it's not. You can just read them out. Just read out the results.
So thank you very much. So not confident at all, 8% of the people. Slightly confident, 23% of the people. Moderately confident, 38% of the people, and very confident, 31% of the people. So it's kind of gives you an idea of the audience that we have here in terms of people are really moderately confident, very confident. Probably some of the people who are slightly confident actually are just a little bit, they probably know more than they think they do.
And of course, there's lots of opportunities to build confidence this week during the SELT workshops because there's a number of accessibility workshops on the docket each day.
That's right. Including one later today at 1.
Yeah.
So we'll just kind of start with the SUNY EIT. Just to give you some of the background, when they look at, when SUNY has defined electronic IT accessibility, they really focused on 4 different areas. And the first one being website and the digital services that are really around the website that people would look at. It could be like for us, when you look at people using Banner, so all those other services besides the actual website. Then there's the digital materials that people would be creating on their own, like you would see inside a classroom or inside documents that CTS would prepare for documentation for people. The third area is the libraries, and in terms of everything that they're doing inside, to provide documentation, to provide services to people. Really, they've moved largely to digital, away from the text. Then we look at the actual classroom design in terms of how the classroom is set up and how people use the services inside there. And then the 5th part is procurement and how we're going and ensuring that the digital services that we purchase have accessibility components and really aren't creating a situation where we need to put in all kinds of workarounds for the digital accessibility. So we have something right there.
It's supposed to be you.
I don't have it,
So our goal is to really work on this initiative in a really systematic manner and to work on developing and continuing to evolve our culture of accessibility. And so we've been really trying to be intentional about tying the work that we're doing in the accessibility initiative with larger diversity, equity, and inclusion work as well. And so part of this is helping everyone start to see how these things all connect.
Yes, that's on the next slide, actually, yeah.
So our goal here is to cultivate a culture of access so all members of our community thrive.
And really, when we think about it, it's technology is really pervasive in everything that we're doing, right from recruitment to instruction to communication that we do with all of our stakeholders. And our first inclination when we focus on working on these areas is the technical aspects. But as we have gone and worked on the project, we have realized really that there's so much more to it. We want to be about inclusivity and belonging in terms of where we're going. And this is where we're going and putting in, and I would even argue like a little bit extra work. It's not a whole lot of extra work to go and to create documents so that we don't have to have workarounds and so that it includes everyone who might have some have some issues with getting to it because the technology is difficult for them. I just say, like, I don't feel like an expert myself in terms of digital accessibility, but I do feel that I've learned some of the principles and the basics, and like really at Oswego, and in some of the sessions later during the week, we'll talk about, I'm sure, the 5 principles that we go and utilize. And once you develop and understand those principles, you can go and create documents that are accessible, and people can go and utilize them, and it helps, I think, with the inclusivity that we're doing. So we're really working on doing it in a systematic manner and work on the culture of digital accessibility. And that's what really Rebecca and I are talking about today. We want to cultivate this culture of access so that everyone feels included.
So we're talking about access for all. We're really talking about access, meaning it's a proactive thing that we're doing, right? And planning for different abilities and bodies, right? So the approach is equity oriented with the goal of providing equitable access to information, materials, and experiences. Ideally, this approach is going to reduce barriers, including minimizing the need for people to disclose their disability status, which we know is a key barrier for students with disabilities, but also faculty and staff as well. A culture is something that we collectively create and participate in. And so to do this requires knowledge and education. So thank you for coming, right? starting that journey. And to us, a culture of access means that accessibility is prioritized and embedded in everything we do, from planning, our practices, our policies, and procedures. And are we 100% there at Oswego? No, but this is definitely our goal, and what we're aiming towards is that accessibility is embedded in all these P's: planning, practices, policies, and procedures.
So we have a second poll everywhere, and we're just going to ask who's responsible for digital accessibility as we go. And we're doing the same thing. I think it's working. I prepared it while Rebecca was speaking. She'll tell me if it's working. If you have a word, really a combination of words, if you put an underscore in the word, it'll all pair together all at once.
Working, but the cloud's not going to be visible to everybody. That was me.
Well, we'll figure out a way of going.
After the presentation, we'll include a screenshot in the slide deck of the results. And some results are coming in, and Sean's going to read them out to us.
Yes. Coming in very slowly, though. Feel free. I can see that you're
Thinking
still as we go and do it.
You want to just start shouting out what's there?
Yeah, okay. Everyone felt responsible. CLT, I think that's called each person, us, instructors. So it's those are all the right answers. I think the right answer is everybody. We gave this poll at Educause, and you can see the results that came out, and really it is very diverse in terms of where you would see it's spread out in other campuses, everyone. But really, it does fall to everyone. The question that we ask: who's responsible for leading EIT accessibility? And you can see that it's everywhere on campus. Although CIO did come up often, which made me chief technology, but actually student accessibility services, digital community,
and that one guy in the library,
that's in the it is diverse. And one of the answers that we really liked was in terms of the diversity office being involved. And actually, a number of schools do that as a model, because this is really a diversity, equity, and inclusion issue on campus.
Our answer is everyone.
Our answer is everyone. Well, for leading, yeah.
So next we're going to kind of move towards talking about expanding our coalition, kind of who's already in our coalition and inviting you to join us.
I did refer back to the last poll already, so you
Yeah.
can go to the next one. Or did you already?
I did. I'm already there. I'm gonna stop ahead of you, Sean.
So when we talk about actually changing culture, really, we're really not talking about just focusing on remediation. It needs to be proactive and be handled. Although when I look at it from a CIO point of view, I do focus a lot on the risk and in terms of how we're going to go and manage that. And just to go back in history, in 2017, we had a Office of Civil Rights complaint against us and the way we handled our website. We didn't take it too personally because 31 SUNY schools had it at exactly the same time, and about 2,000 schools in the higher ed in the United States had it at the same time. So it was really like a mass look at how we were going and handling and offering IT accessibility. But we worked on it for about 6 months to go and to resolve that our remediation issue. But as we went through it, we looked at how we're going to go about and resolve the issue in a way that was systemic. Because if you just go and change the website, make a few changes here and there and make it temporarily accessible, then it's like whack-a-mole, because it's going to go out of accessibility very quickly. So really, when you go and look at how it needed to be done, it needed to be done in a systematic way. Everyone needed to be educated. Everyone had to be given roles and responsibilities in terms of how we were doing it. So we started a number of committees on campus to go and to work on those items. Particularly, we started really around the web in particular and how we were going to go and do that. But then we looked at ways that we could go and help support people making, who are making content. And that was really when Rick Buck, who is our digital services and web coordinator and everything, said, "Oh, Sean, you should talk to Rebecca, because Rebecca's really already working on this."
So really what we started doing is kind of coordinate some grassroots work that was happening with some administrative work that was happening so that we have a much more unified approach on our campus. The grassroots work that was happening really started in about 2014, and we were offering a lot of workshops through the Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching. And I was really involved in that. And then I co-founded with one of our instructional designers, our work group on accessibility practices in 2016. And so that group has existed since that time and has really grown to involve people across campus, including our accessibility resources folks, CELT, the library, marketing and communication, instructional technology, institutional research, and faculty across disciplines, right? And I'm probably missing some other people, right? Because the group has really expanded. And that work group has been responsible for a number of our initiatives on campus that we're really thankful that the steering group has supported by helping us find funding and other things. So one of that is kind of rolling out our strategy of helping everyone get up to speed on the technical aspects of digital accessibility through our 5 principles, which you can find on our website, oswego.edu/accessibility, or use the link in the slide deck to get up to speed on that. You can also go to some of the workshops this week and next week to learn about those. We have our accessibility website, which we have built and rebuilt multiple times to include, up-to-date relevant information. It really got expanded during COVID, as you can imagine, as many more folks were needing different kinds of resources than what we had originally. In 2019, we kicked off the first round of our Faculty Accessibility Fellows program, and we have a new cohort of fellows that are starting today. And we've been thankful that each year we've been able to offer a fellowship for kind of each school. So there's a faculty member from each school represented, or at least that's the hope and dream. And then those folks serve as liaisons to their departments and schools to share information back and forth. And we've also launched like the 10-day accessibility challenge, which is evolving into an IITG. So it's a SUNY supported, funded initiative to do a Brightspace kind of on-demand version of that challenge. And you can learn more about that today at 1 o'clock.
So really, after we joined forces, one of the things that we had really focused on at the beginning was to find and support this coalition of the willing. And I would say in terms of when we first went, yeah, I know that was 2 slides ago, but it fits in well here too. When I look at the overall steering committees that we created, we did have the digital services team, but we also had the president's office, DEI, communication and marketing, and a number of the faculty and accessibility, the accessibility services office itself. So I think when we were able to go in and do that and find some resources to go and help, and I think actually the faculty fellows was really a large assistance when I look at what we've been able to accomplish here. And in terms of the number of people that we've put through the program and have gone and focused on doing accessibility and working it into really their work lives, and the research that's been done here has been really helpful. So we've been really able, I think, a good job of creating a culture of advocates and allies. So when we talked earlier about who's responsible, it is all of us. And no matter what anyone's position is, really there are actions that you can take that will help to move the dial forward. And we do realize that there's different positions, there's different power positions, but when we look at it, and I think one of the things I love about Oswego is it is people working together to go and to accomplish student success and really be student-centered, that we can go and work together and put these practices into place.
So to kind of cultivate or grow this culture of access, this is kind of our a call to action and the tactics that we can use to do this. And so the rest of our presentation is going to focus on this model that we've developed and really thinking about the ways that we can each make an impact. And when I say each, I mean faculty, students, administrators, staff, right? The whole of our community each have a role to play. And this RAMPS model that we've developed, I think, gives everyone kind of a doorway into this and to move in the direction of cultural change. So we typically think of like a ramp, right? As something that would provide some physical accessibility. So hopefully this will be an acronym that you can remember for digital accessibility. So the R in RAMP stands for request, the A for amplify, M for model, P for prioritize, and S for support. We're going to go through them one at a time. But before we do that, I want to remind everyone that not all ramps are created equally. So we want to make sure that we're not thinking about ramps as an afterthought. Ramp should be something we're thinking about in the design of something or when something's started. And so this particular switchback ramp, which is in front of a governmental building, is like a retroactive solution to accessibility because the building wasn't designed with access in mind from the start. And we want to try to avoid the Band-Aids where we can, right? And really think about access from the start. We also want to avoid ramps as an extreme sport, right? Like we don't want to take on too much either. Like this half dome ramp in a skate park. Instead, we really want to think about ramps as an integrated practice, like this ramp leading to 2 floors in a finished museum in lieu of stairs. So it's a way that kind of everyone's involved and invited to participate. And it was clearly a part of the design of the building, right? Or the design of whatever it is that we're doing from the beginning.
So when we were looking at the R in ramps, really went back and forth between request and require. And I guess one of our models is to use a carrot rather than stick. The other thing is we realize that there's different power structures inside any system and any meeting or room that you're in. And really requesting is something that all of us can do, no matter what your power structure in your location is. So when we think of requesting, it could be something as simple as asking people to use a microphone when the microphones are present. Even if you don't feel that you need it, it certainly can make a difference to somebody else in the room, and they're provided there for a reason.
In a classroom, we can request students to follow accessibility guidelines, similar to what we do when we ask them to follow style guidelines like APA or MLA. So there's already a model for this, right? So the key is providing clear and measurable assignment criteria and information about how to meet that criteria. So for example, we could request that students submit documents that pass a built-in accessibility checker in Microsoft Word or PowerPoint, right? Or something like that. Or that videos that are submitted have accurate captions. So not only do they have the auto-generated captions, but they go, we teach our students how to go in and edit them to make sure that those captions are accurate for a video assignment. Obviously this might seem like a really easy fit for a kind of class that I might teach in design, but I would argue that this is really important across fields and disciplines because this is a skill set that people in a wide variety of professions and careers need. And we also have plenty of faculty across departments and at our institution who have been really successful in doing this work, from education to chemistry and many other things across the wide continuum of things that we offer here. The A is for amplify voices and perspectives of people with disabilities. And our campus committees are a great place for us to exercise our ability to amplify. And one way we can do this is by asking questions. So for example, ask something like, what access features will be in place at this event or thing that we're planning? This summer, for example, I was involved in our new faculty and staff orientation planning, and I raised my hand multiple times to say, hey, can we have breaks? Can we do these various things? And things were adjusted so that we were more inclusive. And so we can use our individual power and spaces to do that and to advocate. So those are things that we can continue to do.
So, and similar, I think, like the work that we do inside the committees is one way to talk it up. So I think, like for myself, when we're in President's Council, Provost Council, Business Council, quite many IT directors meetings, try whenever we can go in and make this consideration in terms of what we're doing. And I think no matter what, we like to include a call to action, let people know what they can do. So I'm particularly proud. I know that a lot of times, a lot of reports go out. We really try to go and ensure that digital accessibility has been done in terms of running those through. I think of in terms of emails that go out, and Christmas time in particular, a lot of emails go out with having some kind of graphic there saying Merry Christmas, but using, working with those departments and ensuring that they use all text as an example. And then I think of, when we have emails, we work with facility services in terms of their emails that they send about a something now working inside, and going and ensuring that they change the colors to make them so that people who had some kind of color blindness might be able to see. So thinking of this like long term is important in working with people and helping them to find ways to go and to be part of it.
I think one thing to think too is that, sometimes it's hard to come up with a question or something you can do right on the spot. Sorry, like something went down the wrong pipe. And so what you can do is like think of questions and things ahead of time that you have prepared, right? That you might keep in a notebook or in a digital file that you can have open and have to ask, rather than having to come up with them all the time on the spot. So think about ways that you can do that as an individual, but you can also help others strategize as well about how to amplify voices.
Yeah. So the third item is model best practices. So for me, I think of taking the training that we're offering and implementing the 5 principles wherever we can. And actually the 5 principles are available on the card that was linked. And then for us, ensuring CTS materials are accessible whenever we send them out.
And so one of the things that I do is I make sure that all the documents that I share with others are accessible no matter what. In fact, I make sure that the documents that I use just myself, I set up to be in accessible fashion, because at some point I may need to share it later and I don't want to have to go back and do it. So it's become a habit, because I always do it from the start and make sure I have headings, I have bullet points, and I can organize my materials. Obviously, this takes a little bit of time to build a habit like that, or to build the skill set to do that. But the more we can just build it into our daily lives and our daily actions as just a thing we do, and it's not an afterthought for us, it becomes a model for others to follow. And so, another example is I have a student who's been studying accessibility, and she updated some of her study guides and things for her class to be more accessible. And then when the semester was over, shared them back with a faculty member who is planning to use those in the future, right? So there's a way to kind of pay things forward and continue kind of modeling these practices in small and big ways. P is for prioritize accessibility by allocating resources, which kind of include time and funds. And depending on your role, you may have access to only one of these, right? Typically time. And so, it's easy to dismiss our ability to prioritize when we're not necessarily in charge or managing a budget of something. But we do have control over our time, or at least some of our time, right? Maybe not all of our time, but maybe pieces of it. And as a faculty member, I'm able to make decisions about my research and service, and I can focus in these areas. So for example, I regularly participate in the winter breakouts like InCell, right? Doing presentations and things related to accessibility as part of these professional development efforts, as a way to kind of prioritize this in my day-to-day work.
And I think for administrators, this is an important item. Without resources, nothing really gets done. And staff, tools, and education are all required to support the initiative. So I think in terms of prioritizing, it is making staff's time available to come to the training so that they understand how to do things. Prioritize this. For me, this is a way for really CTS or IT services at other schools to be involved in DEI initiatives. It's hard for us necessarily to think of always where we fit in terms of going and being involved in the diversity, equity, and inclusion. But this is, to me, an obvious way where we can go and support it and be involved. And I think certainly allocating some of our funds to a number of the initiatives. So one would be when we worked on remediation, that was needed. When I think of the faculty fellows, that's really not a large investment in terms of funds that we're going and putting in. It's really the faculty that go and put in the time. But I'm so thankful that we did, because we had, we had already had one group through when the pandemic hit. And it was a gigantic advantage to us to have that when we were there. So certainly in terms of prioritizing, I think that is a large item. So then
You've also got some important software tools like Site Improve that we use for the website, Ally, which if you use Brightspace, you've seen it as a tool there, both as students and faculty have access to some of the things that Ally can provide. Grackle, which is an accessibility checker that we have for the Google Suite, because Google Suite does not have one built in. And Math Type, which is the way that you can make some math equations and materials like that accessible.
And the last S, the last letter is support. And so when I think of supporting, really it is creating the educational opportunity for people to learn, and also allowing people to have the time to go to it, which I mentioned before. So I think it's really important also to support the staff who are doing this kind of work. And one of the items that comes up occasionally is, I just say, more than 80%, 90% of the people buy into what we're talking about and going and creating this work. But at times, there's other people who just see it as more work in terms of what they have to do. And I can totally understand how people feel tired and exhausted and burned out after the pandemic, although I do feel like we're making a comeback lately in terms of doing it.
In terms of the pandemic making a comeback.
But I feel like people's spirits are coming back. But I think in terms of going and ensuring that the staff who are doing this work are supported and, can work with the people that they're, that they're looking to help is really an important component of what we're doing too.
I think another way we can support is kind of gently helping people realize that like there's a more accessible way to do something. So for example, if I get an email in my inbox and there's images that don't have alt text or something like that, I might gently reach out to the person who sent it out and let them know that it's not accessible, but then also offer to help them learn how to do it. And so those are ways that, depending on, again, we have different roles and positions of power. And so different things will feel comfortable to different people, but there are ways that we can each kind of move in this like coaching support way. As we learn skills, we can share them with others. So we hope that you'll kind of join us in employing RAMPS tactics in your everyday practice. I'm really proud of how our campus has moved in this direction already. This is a picture of the ramp that exists between Hewitt, which is being renovated, and Culkin. And this was something that I was on the committee that was making some decisions and talking about some of the plans for this. And originally there was going to be a switchback ramp there. And the team there said, we pushed back saying like, no, we want accessibility really integrated into what we're doing. And so we have something that's much more accessible and inclusive because it's a gentle ramp that goes into the sunken garden. There's a little kind of resting spot halfway down, which is also really helpful in providing some access. So, these are ways that as more and more people care about these issues and we bring them up in different spaces, decisions do get made that are more inclusive. And it's because each of you take the time and the leap to raise your hand and say, what about?
I call that the Rebecca ring. So we did a good job.
Staying on
40
time.
40 minutes, yes, there is time. So if people have questions or comments, you have about implementing ramps inside your unit, about anything in particular. So can throw them in the chat if you have anything in there.
Or raise your hand if you're in person.
Or if you're in person, yes, please.
We'll circle back and offer another opportunity for questions.
Yeah.
Seeing none at the moment.
No. And so we have our last interaction, which is we ask you to utilize the chat to share which ramps tactics you will utilize in the coming month ahead.
So take a minute and really think about, the spaces where you might have a little bit of power or respect that you can lean on to kind of raise your hand. Is it an opportunity where you can request people use more accessible practices? Are there opportunities where in your committees or other situations where you can really amplify the voices of people with disabilities or barriers that folks face and get something to change? Are there ways we can model our behavior by building things into our everyday practice, use our resources, time, money, and also, encourage supervisors and things to do the same, and also ways that we can support and coach one another. So in the chat, I see some here. Peter pointed out that he hopes to model inclusive design using UDL in his course materials. That's awesome. Gwen says model, recognizing that there's a need to work on certain pieces. So thanks for being brave and making a public commitment. We all know that people are more likely to follow through when they make a public commitment. So I encourage you to post things in the chat or to share that with someone else so that perhaps they might check up on you and see how your ramps work is going.
Yeah, and there's a number of other sessions on accessibility in the week ahead. I know this afternoon at 1 o'clock, there's going to be a session that talks about the new accessibility course that we're about to put out. Do you want to mention that? Yeah,
so at 1 o'clock today, Michelle Thornton and friends will talk about that kind of on-demand course that we're working to pilot this spring. And that'll be another opportunity to learn some of these skills. So that's a good opportunity. Some other things that are in the chat are requesting colleagues to use the mic. It drives us all bonkers, Dan, for sure. And Michelle noted wanting to focus on amplifying requesting in the meetings that she's a part of. Anyone else want to make a public commitment?
Well, I'll also add, actually, there's a great Team for Teaching that came out, I think it was on Wednesday this past week, right?
Yeah.
That included a story about the 10-day challenge that we had and about some of the initiatives that we have around accessibility. And that was Michelle and Kate Percival and Laura Harris from the library.
Kate DeForest.
Kate DeForest. Laura Harris, okay, and Michelle Thornton, and yourself and John.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time and attention. And again, if you want a copy of these slides, you can reach out to us and I can give it to you. And I'll also, for folks that are on Zoom, I'll put it in the chat once more, maybe.
And thanks for attending. There's 19 people here.